YouTube. What's up, everybody? So I'd like to apologize for the for bailing out. I once we reach there's like a critical mass, you know what I mean? That when we get to a certain critical mass of reasonable absenteeism. I don't mean absenteeism like truancy or something inherently bad, or inappropriate or whatever. But man, there's just I think I got three, four, five, six just this morning of like I just tested positive for COVID. We had somebody in the class on Tuesday apparently that it's like I've been noodling on this and it seems. Tell me if your experience is similar or different, but it just seems like every day I get one of these notices, um, from the university that just says, "Hey, somebody," and it's always like 72 hours later. It's so efficient, 48 something. But it was like, "Hey, somebody, that's now positive was in your class on Tuesday. May have been contagious." Um, and it's like it feels like, yeah, they exactly have it. I think they've stopped. Like I think they even said all the contact tracing is just a big mess. So we're not even going to do it anymore. Anyway, so I'm just kind of doing this a little bit more ad hoc. If we've got 20 to 40% of the class out, either because you have COVID, somebody you know or love has COVID that you're trying to take care of, somebody in your household, or you're just nervous about it, which is totally legit. And for all the various reasons, right? Why that might be a thing. So this is why I was inspired to drop it's not really a meme, it's just an actual photo of children. I think this was probably in England during World War II. It's really like weirdly psycho and tragic, at the same time. So anyway, I am tempted, honestly, for the next little bit. Give me your comments. By the way, for everybody, not everybody's as fluent with Discord as everybody else. So for everybody, on the voice channel right now, um, you can, yeah, thank you, Ryan. Um, for everybody on the voice channel right now, you can make sure you're on the text channel. You can have like the audio coming, but then watch the text channel. I think almost everybody, or most certainly get that. But if you're not quite sure, in that interface, have the main general text channel. In the meantime, two bits of instruction and also for the few that are not able to even be here like right now, either because you're down sick right now or at this point, there was a point where I was kind of saying, "Hey, look, just let me know, and then I'll be okay." And that just became like an explosion. I began like writing just long lists of who contacted me. Too much overhead. So for now, unless and until you hear differently, um, please try to be here. Make your best effort. I just think it's good to just be here, get it done with, not have like videos stacked up to watch, and then but uh, you don't need to clear it with me to watch the YouTube video. If something comes up, you just whatever. It can be what we would normally call an excused absence or not. At this point, I don't even care because I don't have the bandwidth to manage it. Just let me know. So, which point? And again, thank you for the memes and the snarky comments. It's already started. Um, but number one, over in the text channels, there's a channel called Attendance. Would you please go over there and just put your name, and just put your name on that roll right now, and that's basically the attendance roll. It's only visible to somebody who's on this server. Um, but then what you'll see is somewhere up there whenever I do the roll and actually record it, I'll put a little note that it's clearly me, and it'll say like attendance recorded, and that's my own marker to know that I don't have to go any further up than that. And I have to catch up on that. I'm going to do that right after class today. Okay, so that's how we do attendance, just as a reminder. If you are watching on YouTube and still at live, like live streaming from YouTube without being on Discord, if you could still get on Discord and, if you're here live in real time, just whether you're watching on YouTube or not, put yourself on that attendance. There's also, just again as a reminder, a text channel called YouTube Class Makeup. Yeah, YouTube Class Makeup. So this is for one where you aren't there in real time. Later on, you watch the video and you let me know that you watched it so I can give you credit for attending, for the attendance points. Okay? That's what it's there for. And you can see kind of the pattern. Give me your name, give me the date. That's all I need there. Right. Thank you, Steve. Right. So that's the idea. If you're, kind of an overdue, you attended one. The other thing I'm trying to figure out about attendance, with makeup attendance, I don't want to just leave the whole thing open-ended. So suddenly you're just putting on, a playlist of videos and then going to sleep and calling it good. In order to kind of keep people up to speed, there is a point at which I'll create like a sliding window, and going back to it's probably like a 3-week late sliding window. So that gives everybody, even if you've been down with COVID and maybe you lost a week of your life, not able to kind of really focus or, do school stuff, that at least, you've got some window of time. But I don't want to just have the whole thing be open-ended. So there's a point where I will, yes, David, there's a point at which I'm just going to cut off and say, okay, any, of the things for this week, you have to do it now, have it done by such and such time. I thought that, Dave, that's a COVID graph, right? I thought that was a graph of the homework and what it looks like if I don't have deadlines until the end of the semester. Am I right, Dave? I'm not wrong, am I? No disrespect. No disrespect to, but really that's, so I don't know if everybody can see that. It is, Spencer, it is the same graph. I'm actually just blowing it up. How far back does that go? So that's January. That's 2 years. Freak. That's really true? David, is that really true? I mean, I don't think you just sat there and made a fake Excel spreadsheet to rock this histogram. Let me, actually, I'm going to throw this over on the big screen just for the YouTube crowd. David had just dropped this over, a little COVID action, current graph. Where are we at? Yeah, about there. Crap. Yeah. Wow. So I guess, I don't know. Is there any good news here? I guess if there's any good news, I would say it is that number one, as far as we can tell, based upon the experts, hearkening back to our climate change conversation and the whole, science and the whole science thing, as best we can tell from the experts, if you've been vaccinated, the severity, if you do catch it, the likelihood of severe problems and hospitalization, death, the various things that are bad, drops by I don't remember the numbers, you know what I mean, but drops dramatically, 90%, something like that, including the booster. So, and I think that from everything I've heard, the Omicron variant is really, really contagious, moves very, very quickly, but is not as bad? I don't know. I don't know. But in any case, yeah, it's a little bit. It's a little bit. It's a little bit crazy. Decepticon. Yeah, thanks, Andrew Paul and Steve. Um, all right, I'm just catching up real quick with the comments. I love your snark. I really, really do. Love the memes. Um, Let me just see real quick. You have me at the advantage because I'm doing most of the talking. Sam said 75% of your classes are online, and Andrew, this is your only online class. And this is intermittent, right? We're still officially face to face. And Shaun, so dang sorry, man. So dang sorry. But I'm glad, there are a few people that are currently positive, COVID positive, that are here remote right now and keeping distance, and so that's good. Let's see. I'm just scanning. ¿Por qué no los dos? Yes, thank you for that comment. Hang on. Yeah, good Spider-Man meme. Yeah, okay, so Havoc. So are we switching full online for now? Let's talk about that. For the next few weeks, I would like to. I'm looking at the curve that Dave provided us. That's just freak, man. That is freak. I mean, I know I see it's dropping, but I'd like to just at least till that curve is down. Because I mean, think of it this way. In terms of you, you guys, your safety, I'm obviously really concerned. I don't know if it's obvious, but I'm very concerned. But what happens if I hit it? I mean, I am vaccinated and boosterized, so I mean, I'm doing kind of my part, but crap, I mean, if I roll in there and get whacked, um, you know, we lose a couple weeks of class just like that, just with me, down and recovering. And so that, there's that risk as well of just losing, several weeks straight up. And I'd rather not, whoa, Shaun, I said it correctly. Yes. All right. And yeah, I just was doing my best phonetic pronunciation of the username. All righty. What else? Anyway, okay. So time for discussion now. If you have any, again, you can, and by the way, just as a reminder, you can unmute, share it verbally. That's just great. Oh, shoot. I need to do one other thing I forgot to do. In order for your comments to show up on YouTube, I have to make just a change on my audio settings. It's just a streaming output. So, okay. So your comments will, if you make a verbal comment, it'll be on the YouTube stream. All right, I just fixed that. Okay. Any other comments, pro or con? I just think for safety, the graph tells the picture. I think that give it a few weeks. I don't even know. Let's say third week of February. Give it a few. Are we cool? And we can kind of play it by the ears. Okay, Andrew. What is the tragedy? Okay, Dave. Thanks for that. Let me just going to update that. Andrew, what is the tragedy of Barnaby the Brass Dragon? Is that you have me at the advantage? We likely green. I don't know. Who knows? Let me just move next 3 or and play just bloody comparable things for the last 2 years. I mean, a lot of you, it's like percent of their lives. For me, it's a smaller percentage. I'm really slow now, and I don't even have teams running, so that's a paradox. Yeah, okay. Yeah, this is the hospitalizations. And I think that, and that's, in contrast to the positive tests. But I think one of the reasons is because as a variant, there's a lot of, I think that there's my amateur scientist perspective is I think there's a lot of these where the variant is not as dangerous or as deadly per se. A lot of these people testing positive have been vaccinated and or boosted, so that as a consequence, you have this incredible spike of infections, but you don't have, well, you do have a higher than prior spike of hospitalizations, but it's not proportional. This one is like the Burj Khalifa in Dubai. I've been there. I've been to the top. Anyway, all right. So, but that's good to get some data. Just think about what we're doing. Thanks, David, for providing those. Appreciate it. Okay. Um, okay, let me do one other thing here. So I'm going to jump back over to the comments real quick. Anyway, last, anybody else confirm or deny pro con on being remote? I mean, I can just call it if I feel like it. You know what I mean? But I'd like to be as much of a benevolent dictator as possible. Okay, hang on. I'm getting, everything's a little bit, we're getting a lot of stagger. Okay. All right. Um, we got kind of a preponderance of remote is fine. Silo, prefer in person. All things being equal, I agree. And I'm just going to regrettably say, let's take a couple weeks. Uh, Brandon prefers in person. Um, yeah. All right. Okay. Now, is that so? CR, is that our class right now? Is your meme about this video stream right now, or is that just general? Keep freezing? Dang it. Yeah, in fact, I bopped over to the YouTube feed and it's got YouTube's not receiving enough video to maintain smooth streaming, so viewers are going to experience buffering. That's the message anyway on the YouTube thing. All right, but the audio is okay, right? Are we still fair on that one? CR audio still okay? Okay. All right. Yeah. Okay. So let me do this. We're going to talk. I want to talk a little bit more about. Anyway, I just want to say, just sick and tired of bloody COVID. The social isolation. It's still we're not all the way back. Have been to things. Been to like concerts and been to stuff. Been to Italy, but it's just still not the same. Okay. first thing, just a little bit of a while I pull up the slides for some writing stuff. I just want you to, I want to get your sense, kind of an informal poll. Are we gonna, what's the future look like? I mean, we went through this as a world 100 years ago with the Spanish flu, and it took a couple years. And of course, they used masks, they did social distancing, there weren't vaccinations, there were a lot more dead people. Um, and then at some point, life goes back to normal, and that disease is just out there. We all deal with it. I think, if I'm not mistaken, that it's part of the flu vaccine. If you get a flu shot, that, it's still just part of the variant that's out there. And most of us, probably had the Spanish flu sometime as kids, some variant of it, right? And it just, I don't know, herd immunity or whatever. What is our future? When do we get back to something that looks like normal? Um, Steve said, I think this will never go away. This will be like another flu where it's COVID season and they'll combine flu and COVID shots. That's my prediction as well, Steve. Um, yeah, Dave said, I think COVID will be endemic, meaning it's going to be just kind of baked into the diseases that we just deal with as humanity, as a human race. Yeah. 4F. Thank you, Brandon. All right. And thank you, Sam. And by the way, Sam, Darkest Hour, great movie. Great movie. Uh, Gary Oldman as Winston Churchill, amazing. Amazing. Okay. All right. Where am I? Where am I? I wanted to just hit a little more of the writing stuff that we were kind of kicking in. We want to try to hit logical fallacies, but before that, I wanted to just touch a little bit more on writing stuff. Um, yeah, okay, so I have another question. Sean said, with as many variants popping up as often as they do, we have a new virus friend that's never going away. But there's got to come a point where, I don't know, does the curve ever come down, or are we just going to be wearing masks until I'm dead? By when I'm dead, I mean like 30 years from now or whatever. Assuming I live a long, nor natural life. Just curious, what's your sense? Asking you to like see the future here, but do you think we'll ever just, and if we ever will, how soon that we just get back to, you know, look, people get sick, and you're going to have the seasonal flu. By the way, Andreval, that's true. Certainly true in Utah. Less true in other areas where the masks are still quite a thing. Um, oh, interesting. Dave just said, I think this recent spike is COVID fatalism, accepting whatever comes. Like, right, just like, well, we're going to get it or not. Um, yeah, I don't know. Anyway, good thoughts. Good thoughts. Uh, My system is really being slow now, and I can't even blame it on Teams, which is not running right now. But I'm quite confident it would be worse. Sorry, I'm trying to pull my slides up. And PowerPointo, not Respondo. Okay, let me try this one more time. Okay, let me ask you this. While I'm waiting again on technology, um, I going to ask you? The writing, the stuff we've talked about writing, is that making any difference? Is that helping? Is that like, sanity check here? It's your opportunity to hide behind a username and can't even necessarily tell who you are. Is it just a bloody waste? Is it helping? Is it changing the way you think about writing? Um, that's kind of my. There we go. Hey, I got PowerPoint. Give me your thoughts about um, what we've been talking about relative to writing. And while I'm waiting for this, waiting for that to show up on the screen. Um, just reading the comments. Yeah, no, this is interesting. So Matthew just said, not sure if you're going to remember to apply it. That's true. I'm just trying to offer, some insight. Oh, I got to lose I got to lose the the gas mask children. Let me tuck them away a little bit. Let me see. Nice. Dave just said a lot of the difficulties are because science people can't write. Um, Good mentality to have, Hunter, as a CS major. Um, it is true. It is true that if you can write and express yourself better, you will have an advantage, career-wise. Um, Brandon made you think about your writing and try to improve it. Okay, Matthew, the lessons and readings on creativity were helpful. By the way, sorry for the choppy, man. We got past we got to the John Cleese creativity, right? On your own viewing. Pulling up my schedule here. Sorry, it's really slow on my side again. Come on, ya dumb. Sorry, I'm going to my phone. That's how bad this is. No, there we go. There we go. Um, yeah, that's right. Last week we had the creativity video by John Cleese and the Do Schools Kill Creativity by Ken Robinson. I like those a ton, which is why I assigned those. Um, Again, it's just trying to get you thinking outside the box. That's the main thing I'm trying to do, is jar your thinking a little bit. Okay, let me pivot over to writing. Okay, we hit quite a bit about this one, that readers want black and white explanations. The next one in this list was simple language seems dumb. I think this is really important. First of all, there's everybody, and for every kind of writing, there's a voice, and different writing has different voice. Some of you um, have natural voices when you're chatting that are use different vocabulary, more complex words, more rare words. Others of you, your language expression is a little simpler. Um, the bottom line has to do with doing the things that are consistent with you, being true to your own voice, but also understand that your voice needs to pivot to match the audience, right? If you're gonna, talk to your 3-year-old child, then you've got to be in a position to speak in a way that the 3-year-old child is going to grok it. And if you're, trying to present an academic paper at an academic conference, then that's a different audience. It's a different, kind of a use of language. So just understand that when you're texting your boss versus sending an email to your boss versus sending a memorandum with a proposal to your boss, pitching a proposal for a particular, thing, just understand that those are all different kinds of language. But the bottom line is don't assume that somehow you have to get carried away and go become, Dr. Thesaurus. And, in order to be, you got to say, oh dear. Yeah, you got to say certain words in order to appear a certain way. This is not true. Okay. And good Will Ferrell meme, Andrew. Yeah. For those on YouTube, sometimes I use big words I don't always fully understand in an effort to make myself sound more photosynthesis. Yes. I think so Dave asked, are philosophers the worst writers, or am I too dumb to understand Kant? I think that philosophers are the densest writers in terms of just the denseness of their expression. That's my experience. There are very few books that I just flat out couldn't get through, or just realized that the labor required was just absurd. And the one of those was a book on philosophy. Not a book about philosophy, but a book by a philosopher. It just tends to be pretty dense. Yeah. And I think tedious is the right word, among the most tedious. Okay, continuing on, friends. Longer is better. We talked a little bit about this. The 5-paragraph essay, the minimum required word count. If anything, I think there ought to be a maximum word count. If you had to have only one word count, and it could be either the minimum or the maximum, I would have it be the maximum, with the requirement that the writing exercise, say in high school, had to do the topic justice, but capped, so you couldn't get carried away. So if you just say, I'll just write 2 sentences, well, you can't do the topic justice in just 2 sentences. So you've got to write enough. So if you don't express, the point is not how long it is, but whether you express the idea effectively. And if you express the idea effectively, you're good. Now, there's one exception to that, and this is actually going away as a kind of a core issue. But I used to do writing for magazines and print magazines. The online magazines, this is not really a constraint, but print magazines would literally have, like a page that you had to fit in a certain page. So, kind of a page length, word count. So I literally would be like, you've got 1,000 words, and that's your count. And you need to be, within plus or minus, but it's because there's this much room on the page that you need to fill that's allocated for your column. And so people that write columns or, magazine or newspaper columnists, they are in fact used to writing to a certain word count. So it's not like it never occurs out in the wild, but it is by and large a natural construct. Okay. Quick comments. Yeah, Steve said, as important as what you're saying is knowing your audience, right? And it's gonna impact the way you express what you express. This one, just FYI, using I is always bad. Again, these are myths. There's really not a concrete rule. There is, for most academic papers, not a great idea because in an academic paper, the point is, the real ultimate point was your scientific conclusion was the point. And once you start saying what's the point? You know what I mean? In a scientific paper, I did this, I did that. That sort of travelogue is really not the point. The point is what is sort of objectively true. This is how you run the experiment. This is the background. This is what we know. The I doesn't really fit. But if you're going to be a blogger, maybe it makes perfect sense to use it. So there's not, I don't know if that was anything that hit you during junior high school or not. Oh man, yeah, we've talked plenty about this. The 5-paragraph essays, that's the one. That's the golden. So yeah, no. Figure out what your audience. Oh, sorry. Now I'm going to take a little nap. As Steve said, figure out your audience. That's really the most important thing. And write to that audience. What's the intent? What's the attention span of your audience? Again, why the very short stories are part of what we're doing. This one, sometimes, this is an interesting one that shows up sometimes. The idea that changing your writing style for your audience is somehow selling out. Okay, that's not true. The example here from the UT Austin thing, you would explain the Green Bay Packers defensive scheme differently to a group of tourists from China than you would to a group of high school football coaches. And it's not because you're compromising, but because you want to communicate effectively. So you got to understand what your audience does or doesn't know about what you're talking about, how remedial they are, how advanced they are, And when you write your blog posts, your audience can be presumed to be a little bit technical, but, don't assume that they know everything about your field or, you got to bring, one of the things you do in writing is you bring your audience along to the brink. And then, you got to have it's really tough. But when you're writing larger papers, you've got to have the ability to take everybody in this bucket, a very big bucket, people who know a lot about it, people who know nothing about it, and funnel them all to this one location. And from that location, you can now launch and everybody's on the same page. But there's a real art form to bringing that whole group along to the jumping off point, in a way that doesn't bore the person who already knows it, but does inform and educates the person who doesn't. It's difficult to do that really, really well. Okay. All right. Dave sharing coffee with everybody. Thank you. Let me see. Oh, we talked about this one. Geniuses don't need to follow the rules. Yeah. No, the reality is that if you really are a genius and you're deviating from the rules, you ought to know why you're deviating and what you're getting from it. Otherwise, it might just be, and probably is that you just don't understand the rules of grammar and you're not a good writer. That's the strongest likelihood. It is possible for a genius to create brilliantly without a prior grasp of those rules and kind of create them on their own. We talked a little bit about this. All right. So a few things about your Smallish blog posts, especially when we're dealing with, one of the questions that comes up a lot is from students in 305G is what do you do? What is it? What do the writings have to be about? Okay, they have to be about the technology and the way it interfaces with society, culture, international, kinds of issues. But there has to be, it has to be about the topic of the class. It can't just be, a poem about butterflies. Unless there's something particular about the poem or about the butterflies that is germane to the topic of the class, okay? Sometimes the blog post is inspired by some reading. That happens when you do the current events, and it happens when you do like the Cuckoo's Egg book, and when you pick your own book. But when that happens, but they're really just exploring the topic from your perspective. So the way you need to do this is let the topic kind of drop inside of you, swim around, stir around, and then what you say is your thing. Like, for example, when we get to the Cuckoo's Egg and there's a post about it, those are called, you might note, they're called book-inspired blog posts. They're a little longer, but what I don't want to see is in the book, The Cuckoo's Egg, now you're writing a book report. Now you're in junior high again, okay? In the book, The Cuckoo's Egg, Clifford Stahl, blah, blah, blah. Way better to say, security is important, blah, blah, blah. As an example, in the Cuckoo's Egg, I'm going to maybe cite an example or draw something from it. One point that really illustrates this is when Cliff Stahl says, blah, 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 in the Cuckoo's Egg, that is sort of citing to things reasonably. It's not just a book report or a regurgitation of whatever it was that somebody else said in some article. Okay. So Matthew, great question. Do you want us to base our writing on the current topics / readings of you mean like the class period or the topic of the course as a whole? And the reality is, if you can be writing about the things we're talking about recently, great. If it was something we talked about last week that's still nagging at you, knock yourself out. If it's about the class period, literally today and right after class, you write this great post about what we were talking about today, great. But if it's at any point, if you do writing and it is still about anything involved in the broad spectrum of what this class is about, you're fine. Okay? Is that cool, Matthew? I hope that makes sense. It really is, because what I'd really like it to be is you getting the most value out of the experience for you. That's what I'd prefer to have. But don't regurgitate. It's disgusting. Okay. Here's some tips for success on the Smallish posts, a few other ideas, and I don't know what time we'll have. We should be able to start talking a little bit about logical fallacies. Before you turn in your paragraph or your small post, whatever the thing is, edit it. Edit it. It's staggering how many of you. Well, I see this a lot on like Facebook too. Facebook is social media, or texts are a little bit less forgiving, right? Once you press send, torpedoes in the water. But on Facebook, you can go back and edit. You can edit your post on Facebook. Maybe you didn't know this. You can edit your post on Facebook. I'm just always surprised when somebody makes a post on Facebook and there's like 5 typos in it. Look, read the damn thing. Just read it. Read it. Remember there's no great writers. There's only great editors. Just read it again. Looking for, yeah. Does that make sense? Let me see. Dave, should we create a questions thread so they don't drown in the memes? I don't know. I think as long as the memes don't get insane, I like having everything in the same flow. That's my take, Dave. You could create a separate thread. The problem is then you've got to be bouncing back and forth. We have on occasion made like a separate memes thread, but they just, So really, Steve, corporate-wide emails at Costco going out with typos. That's just no good. What else? Don't write it the day it's due. Hang on. I have a sneeze coming on. See, if we were in class, but I'm socially isolated here. I do have, I have my friend. I use this for meetings sometimes. It's the right way to start. And I can hide behind it if I need to sneeze. let's see. Don't write it the day it's due, right? Now that's a little easy. When you're doing the very short stories, you can, work that, edit it, and be done. But when you're writing a paragraph, write it a day before, revisit it if you want to actually have it be really good. Um, Digest the material. Don't just rush through it. Whatever you're trying to think about, spend time thinking about it. Explore that. Um, yeah, and I talked about the in this article when you're commenting about an article. Don't just start with in this article. Don't just respond. It is common for things to be too short, too long, or too short. When we get to full paragraphs, they need to be a little bit more, building up and then reaching some crescendo. Yeah, inspired. What are your thoughts? Complaining about stuff, is not the type of insight we're looking for. If, by the way, there are things you think suck, man, DM me. You know, uh, this slide's a little old. It shouldn't say via email. It should say DM me. Autobiographical travelogue. I really like the article. If the point is your blog post and it's about your adventures, like I really like this restaurant, fine. Don't assume the audience has read the article that you're referencing. Keep that in mind. Um, if you're making a point and you use controversial points as your evidence, then that the only struggle with that is you can do that, but then you got to turn around and back up the controversial points, you know? And what you're looking for is not a stream of consciousness, but something constructed. So the sentences work together. Okay. This one I will ding you for. Avoid posing rhetorical questions like, can't we all just get along? Don't you think so? No, we talked about this. Take a stand, do your thing. The Lemming Defense, as everybody knows, as everybody thinks, one of the weakest, in my view, one of the weakest forms of argument, and it's a kind of I don't know, it's a form of logical fallacy where you basically just say, you know, um, I don't know, it's either everybody knows this or it's I speak for a lot of people. I've talked to a lot of people and you know and they agree with what I'm saying. Now that's bullcrap. For the most part, that's bullcrap. Um, First of all, in my opinion, if you want to represent people, name the people. Who are the people? And then don't tell me this is your viewpoint. Tell me you're reporting an empirical study in which you gathered a bunch of opinions, pulled them all together, summarized them, and said, this is what the survey says. Now you're speaking, but you're still not speaking for people. You're summarizing what the people said. Unless you are the spokesperson. I am the spokesperson for the, United National Dairy Cattle Front. I don't know what. I'm just making that up. I don't even know what that means exactly. But you know what I mean? If you're actually a spokesperson, then by all means speak for the organization. But if you're not, you're really just trying to find a way. Um, you're really just trying to find a way to be like a proof by authority. Rather than rationally build an argument to support your idea, you're just, hey, I speak for a lot of people when I say this sucks, but now your proof is that everybody else thinks so, but you didn't prove that either. Okay. Um, yeah. Thanks, Dave. Um, let's see. Don't repeat yourself. Multiple synonyms. Oh, the loose pointers. A wise man once said, cite the wise man. Who is the wise person? Who's the wise guy? Another one, and I've generally found this to be the case with students here at UVU in these posts, generally being restrained and respectful. This, as I've talked about the first week, that is a, fundamental premise of our ability to have real dialogue is that we're doing it respectfully and, We give respect to others. We respect and give them human dignity. We expect the same in return. And then we can respectfully disagree, and then maybe get down to just why we disagree. Persuade with honey, not vinegar. Yeah, yeah. I think that's one of the big struggles in our kind of current cultural worldwide, the cultural divisiveness or divisiveness, depending upon how you prefer to say that. One more, just a couple other things. I think this, yeah, I've just got a few more slides on this stuff. I don't know what, what as I've talked about, I don't really care with the pace that we take to get to whatever we get to. It's okay. I'm not overly worried about it. Whoa, hang on a second. What just happened here? My PowerPunto just kind of like, we're back. It just blacked. I don't know what happened. Um, when you're writing, a few mechanical things. Question words for noun phrases. It's one of the kind of weird, lazy things that happens. When you start to say, like, a home run is when, a thus and such is when. No, it's not a when, it's a thing. Try to find the noun phrases that are the actual descriptors of the things rather than using the colloquial sort of, something is when you know. And there's a similar one, where it's an indirect form of writing. I call it existential statements, like there exists an X such that, if you remember your, whatever, where do you get that? Discrete calc. There is a lot of discussion these days, right? What's a direct, let's just workshop that one for a second. There is a lot of discussion these days. Would you mind just dropping proposed rewrites for that beginning? There is a lot of discussion these days, about X. The other day do you mean heard? Hunter, heard? Yeah. And by the way, you can also edit your prior posts in Discord, just FYI. Yeah, the other day I heard. Sure. What else? Because as soon as you say, look at how much mayonnaise this sentence starts with. There is a lot of 5 mayonnaise straight out of the chute. Too much mayonnaise. So delete your way to glory. Okay. Drake Lord. Yes. What else? Say it, but say it in a direct way. I'm waiting for a good one. People talk a lot about, sure. And I don't even know, Andrew, I don't even know if you need to say a lot. Maybe you get that for free. Nice. There's talk about, yeah, a global, how about, a global discussion has arisen concerning X. Or X is a topic apparently on the minds of a lot of people. I'm just saying, I don't know how many of these are like brilliant, but you know what I'm trying to say? Just try to be as direct as you can. And the cue to this one right here is the beginning of all the mayonnaise. There is a lot of, right? That mayonnaise is your cue. When you're indirect, you get a lot of mayonnaise. Okay? When you're direct, the mayonnaise tends to go away. Okay. Next one. Be cautious of just mush words that don't mean anything. Just as one example, and I've seen this in academic papers where you just have this like indeterminate association, like has. In fact, this is an actual quote from an academic paper that I reviewed. Okay, I was a reviewer on this paper. It literally said, the introduction of a new tool to a research lab has high overhead. Now, what exactly does that word has mean? The authors thought it was okay, but also the problem with has and other mushy language is you already know what you're trying to say, so to you, that's what it says. But if you don't already know, then it doesn't communicate anything other than a vague association. It tells you there's some association, and that's it. So what is it really? Is fitted with, is accompanied by, is encircled within, is equipped, right? But if I just say, whatever, even if I say something like, Bob has a secret, Bob hides a secret. See how much meatier that got all of a sudden? Bob carries a dark secret. Bob, poor Bob. You know what I mean? It is just a mush word. It isn't. Bob conceals. Thank you, Dan. Yeah, Bob conceals a forbidden knowledge. Yeah, that's meat, right? In fact, check it out, Daniel. You've got only one mayonnaise word in that little sentence, and it's only the word a. So that's tight, man. Bob needs help, maybe. Bob Bob needs a lot of help, Sean. This is for sure. Um, yeah, and Dave, thanks. That's a good. I like the meme. Um, yeah, humanity trying to tack language down. Use language to tack down the indescribable nature of the universe. Yeah, thank you. What else? Yeah, okay. And I think we're getting near the end of my slides on this. Oh yeah, another one. Future words. What I call using the future words. This was another one that was an actual quote from an actual paper that I reviewed. Might have even been one of my students, and then it was edited. Yeah, I think it will. I think it is. But the key here is the word will. It's a future word, right? Something will happen in the future. But one of the things that happens when we are doing our little colloquial thing, and someone's like, I don't know how to get to Nico's, right? And then you start to describe, and everybody needs to know how to get to Nico's because it's the best thin crust pizza in the state. And the wings, so good. They're so good. It's great. If I say, okay, so let's say you're starting at UVU, and then we start in our colloquial language, we say things like, okay, so you're gonna go down to the roundabout, it's way better than slab pizza, Steve. It's dramatically better than slab pizza. Um, you know, you'll do this, you'll do that, and I don't know why we do this. Sometimes you are talking about somebody who's going to do something in the future, but then we use it for things like, how do I change the water in the whatever? How do I water the plants? So you're gonna do this, you're gonna do that, but if it's just instructions, we tend to write it the same way. So this was an actual line. A programmer will write roughly the same number of lines of code in a given amount of time, regardless of the programming languages being used. I remember the paper. The omnipresent future, Dave, is my own. I don't know if it's used anywhere, if anybody says it. It's my term to describe the sort of the objective universal voice of truth. For example, a programmer writes roughly the same number of lines of code. All you have to say is writes instead of will write. Whenever I see the will, I always ask when. It's an extra word that creates, it adds a meaning that you don't want, that doesn't add anything to what you're trying to say, and adds basically a little glob of mayonnaise. So the sort of omnipresent, the Wait, the omnipresent future. Wait, default. Wow, I don't even want to say the omnipresent future. That's a typo, Dave. I think that's a typo. It's like I think of it as like the sort of the omnipresent. Yeah, no, that's a bloody typo. Yeah, because I was thinking about future. Wow, wow, that's horrible. But it's sort of like the omnipresent. No, it's not even. It's not future. It's not future, Hunter. It's the omnipresent, scientific omnipresent. You know, atoms do this. Gravity does this. Gravity. It's not gravity will do this. Gravity does this. Does that make sense? Ignore the word future there. Default to the omnipresent. Yeah, it's a way. So Shaun said basically we want to remove ambiguity. Yes, and Manet's language is always pretty ambiguous by its nature, right? Yeah, exterminate the future. There you go. Um, yeah. So Dave, thanks for bringing up the point. It made me look at it, and it's like it's an unnecessary future tense for the sort of omniscient present tense. That's really what I want to say is the omniscient present. Okay? Omnipresent Mayo. Yes, Hunter. Exactly. Wow. I got to change that slide. Here's a few other ones. Just goofy. We talked a little bit in class. Um, how we do it on time. Goofy common mistakes. It's is one of the really hard ones. Okay? Confusing its and it's non-intuitive, but it apostrophe s always means it is, and the best way to make yourself fix that problem is whenever you read it, including when you're reading your own writing, say it out loud as it is. If your sentence starts with it's been known for many years, it, you know, it's also it is or it has, right? It has been known for many years. Fine. If I say that is its nature, right? To bite is for a dog to bite is in its nature. So for a dog to bite is in it is nature, and it won't work. So if you can just say it is in your mind or it has, um, and if it still makes sense, then the apostrophe is right. Otherwise, you don't use the apostrophe even though it's possessive. Okay, loose versus lose. Your whole generation is just killing me. So you can okay boomer me if you want, but because I am a boomer. But loose, the first one here, by the way, in case you're confused about which one's which, you're like, what's the problem? Lose versus loose. The first one is loose with the hard S, and the second one is lose with the Z. And curse you English, fine. um, no, Steve, come on, man. Breathe versus breath? Wait, now that I'm thinking about it, I'm also confused. Thank you, Steve, for screwing up my day. Yeah, you brought me down with you. Okay, next one makes me crazy. The would have, the longer version of would apostrophe VE is would have, not would of. Common for this class, by which I mean 10 to 20% of the class will say would of, could of. That's how it sounds, but that's not how it's. No, would of is not even grammatical. All right. And I think that's the end of those. Yeah. Yeah, yeah, yeah. Now, here's what I want to do. Let me just kick off a little thing. We'll just start in. We'll pick it up next week. Again, I'm so fatigued out, I think, by COVID and everything that I'm just, you know, uh, let's just enjoy the ride, okay? Let me see. I'm looking at Steve's meme, but it's not making any sense to me. Yeah, weather and weather, Jaden, right on. There's a lot of them. There's a lot of them, but there's something, man. The other one is just punctuation. Texting has destroyed your punctuation. The run-on, the run-on sentence is killing me, man. Just killing me. Um, yeah, radioactive. I hate when people say I could care less when they mean to say I couldn't care less. Fine, you get the pedantic award. The interesting thing is, I think there are people who will. It's like a shorthand for say, it's a not what is it? As if I could care less. I don't know. Like it's a shorthand for a broader one where it does kind of work. I don't know, but I agree. Oh, there and there. Thank you, Christian. Right? Um, yeah, Sam, I should add there and there. I mean, it wasn't meant to be comprehensive. It was just that's why I put it et cetera, which is another one. Can I just put this one? Et cetera. It's Latin. Although if you were strictly going to be Latin, it would be probably et cetera, but et cetera, not ex cetera like excedrin. Just trying to polish you up a little bit, polish up your communication just a wee little bit. Um, Let me see. Oh, really? Can Radiant give me a link? Drop. He mentioned she mentioned the song by Weird Al called "Word Crimes." Can you drop that there, Radiant? Share that. Oh, really? So Frozen had an English lab teacher that used that song by Weird Al. All right. So let me just talk for just we got like 5 minutes. All right, thank you. I will. Yeah, we will all learn grammar from Weird Al. Um, let's just talk about logical fallacies. So, uh, what do you think I mean? I have, on occasion, bumped into people, talked to people who didn't know what the term logical fallacy actually meant. So, what do you think? What would you say it either that you know it is or that you would believe it to be? Oh, used to text someone, so radioactive, used to have someone who said all ALL instead of IL. Well, now that's also accent, you know? I mean, you go deep south and they'll say all be there soon. And if they spelled it, if they're, educated, they would say I apostrophe LL. Um, okay, so Dave said logical fallacy, an argument that falls flat when examined from the perspective of logic. Okay, that's fair. Andrew, a logical fallacy is when there is a fallacy in logic. Smart Alec award goes to Andreval. Um, Using arguments that don't actually prove what you think they do. I like that. But no, actually, in all fairness, even though Andreval carried the award away, I just want to say it is really true where there is a fallacy, a falsehood, a misapplication of logic. Okay. For example, if I say, um, you're a little kid and you're having an argument, you remember this one? Um, because my dad said so, or my parents said so, or right? My mom said so. And um, is that a proper logical argument. No, it's proof by authority, you know. What are some other ones that jump out at you that people do that make you a little bit crazy? And what we're going to do starting next week is we'll kind of tease these apart a little bit more and walk through a whole bunch of these so you can kind of, kind of start to make some sense. And maybe just become a little, I don't expect you to memorize all these, but maybe just be a little bit more aware. Um, uh, Frozen, making assumptions without proof when you say all when you can't prove everyone. Okay, no, that's fair. Assumptions without proof. Get it said depends if it's inductive or deductive logic. For deductive, it means that the conclusion doesn't follow logically from the premises, right? Inductive, that the conclusion is not likely true given the premises. Yeah, rock and roll. Children are illogical, Sam. Uh, Slippery slopes. Yeah, no, slippery slope is an example, right? And the interesting struggle, Dave, with, why does the argument always end with bestiality? The interesting thing about slippery slopes is there are, and this is the difficult part with that one in particular, we'll talk more about it, is that there are, in fact, things that lead to other things, right? There was a really old Saturday Night Live skit with Dan Aykroyd. So this goes back to the 70s, where I would view it as like the slippery slope. If anybody can find this, but and find the video, but basically he's this sort of, uptight guy, and everything leads to beer, right? Children, once they, I'll do my Dan Aykroyd imitation. Children, once they start dancing, you know where that leads? Beer. And he just continues to like make all these arguments. Next thing you know, they're having sex, and you know where that leads? Beer. Like everything led to beer. And it's like the ultimate sort of farcical or absurdist slippery slope, argument. But the struggle is there are in fact things that do lead to other things. There are things which are gateways to other things. That's actually true. But the problem is it doesn't mean that just because I say it, that it's, you've got to establish why I would believe that starting with this one thing is going to lead me, is beer going to lead me to hard liquor, and is that going to lead me to alcoholism? If I never drink beer and I never drink hard liquor, I'm not ever going to be an alcoholic. But how do you've got to tease it apart and do some work. You got to do some work. Let me see. Nice. Okay, Andreval, is that a loaded question? Which insurance company would use slippery slope commercials? Do you mean used to use slippery slope commercials? Are you thinking of like Geico? Allstate. Oh, Mayhem. Yes. Yes. Love that guy. Okay. Yeah, so the point just being that there are things we say and it just doesn't make any sense. It just doesn't follow. There's Mayhem. Yeah, I think that's a great ad campaign, honestly. Yeah, okay, so but these are just examples of where you're trying to make a point, but you didn't really make a point yet. I'll give you my favorite one is ad hominem. This is Latin. Means loosely about the person. So this is like, oh yeah, you just said, you came and you argued with me that a college education isn't of any value. And I'm just like, well, yeah, well, of course, some fat slob like you're probably, political brand the politics, or right. That's an ad hominem attack. It has no basis, no bearing whatsoever on the merits of what I've said, right? It just simply turns around and attacks me as a person. And there's a whole bunch of variants of that. No True Scotsman, where I can say, well, only no real Democrat could possibly, that's the insult I'm trying to hurl her, or no real American would ever believe, and you believe that, therefore you're not a real American, and that's my argument against what it is you believe. But I might actually be a real American and still believe that. Come to my argument, come meet my argument and get down. But that's difficult. And so that's what we're trying to do as we get into this world of thinking about and talking about all the cool things. This is what we're trying to, you know, tease apart. Yeah. Okay. We're out of time. Let's wrap it. Thanks for being here, for the good comments.